Hello, and welcome everyone to our marvelous Monday broadcast of Miss Hope's Reading Hour. So glad to be here with you this evening. All of my young ones, students, children, parent friends, teacher friends, parent teacher friends, and anyone who loves to hear a great book. Welcome to Miss Hope's Reading Hour on this marvelous Monday. So glad to be here with you. Hope that you had a great weekend. My weekend was, it was okay. I did a lot of food shopping. Okay? Because as you all know, Thursday is Thanksgiving Day. It is a holiday. There's half days of school on Monday, on today, and Tuesday, and Wednesday. Half days of school. Now, there's some people around the country who their holiday has started already, or their holiday started at the end of today. I was like, man, you are already off of school? Man. Well, it's not too bad because here in Philadelphia, we have half days because it is almost Thanksgiving and we're having report card conferences. So half days of school, though we are all virtual right now. Well, my weekend was basically food shopping and then recuperating from a lot of food shopping. Okay. But I was hoping in my email that I saw some emails about organizations that I can put in the ticker, but I didn't see any. Remember, between now and Christmas, I will be putting organizations that are feeding people who might be worried about where their next meal is coming from, or if it's their first time ever not being sure about having enough food for their family. We want to help these organizations right now. So I would like to hear about those organizations. On our next Miss Hope's Reading Hour, we will definitely have an organization to put in the ticker so that you can donate. And another thing I'm going to do is during this whole time of Miss Hope's Reading Hour, between now and Christmas, I will be posting Miss Hope's Reading Hour also in my personal Facebook page so that everyone can see it. Everyone can see the ticker and they can donate to these organizations that are helping people, hopefully, in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, in the United States, and possibly all over the world. Okay? Helping people who need to have food to eat for their families. Because there are a lot of people, especially now during this time, who are dealing with some food insecurity. And we want to be able to help them. And anything that we can do can help. Miss Hope's Reading Hour is a testament to that. I've told people, however much you want to donate, it will help to buy books. And we have been on since April. Since April, my friends. And because of your donations, that is the reason why Miss Hope's Reading Hour is still on. Because of your donations, your generosity. And now we want to share that generosity with organizations that need it. Okay? Now, a program note. Because Thanksgiving is on Thursday, there will be no Miss Hope's Reading Hour on this wonderful Wednesday. Because for many families, Wonderful Wednesday is very busy. Because even if you are just having Thanksgiving with your family that's in your house, a lot has to be done that day before Thanksgiving. So that is why we will not be having our Wonderful Wednesday broadcast, but we will be back on a fabulous Friday. Yes, it is Black Friday, but you can read stories on Black Friday. That doesn't mean that you can't read great books. You can, and we will, okay? So we will not see you on Wonderful Wednesday, but we will see you on Fabulous Friday. Got to get my mind right with the days, okay? And of course, Thursday is Thanksgiving. And remember, anytime that we have to broadcast on Thursday, it is a thankful Thursday, whether we broadcast or not. And it is Thanksgiving. And I hope that you all can think of just a bajillion things to be thankful for. Okay? Wishing all of you a great Thanksgiving in advance. All right? Now, of course, this will be the last day on Miss Hope's reading hour until Christmas that you will see this ticker about donating to Miss Hope's reading hour, because from Fabulous Friday up until Christmas, we will have someone else's information in here to donate to their organization that is helping feed families all over this city, state, country, and possibly world. Okay? Now, let us get to our books. If you saw the teaser, you saw that we are still honoring our Native American brothers and sisters and their heritage because it is Native American Heritage Month, right? So we have, actually, this is going to be like, let's call it a 3.5 book day, because we're not reading the whole book, one of the books that we're reading, because it has a selection of poems in it. So our first book is called 13 Moons on Turtle's Back, a Native American Year of Moons. So that's our first book that we are going to be reading from today. And we're going to read a few selections from this book. Okay? So this book is by Joseph Bruchac and Jonathan London, illustrated by Thomas Locker. And this is a Paper Star book, Penguin Young Readers Group. Okay, so we will read a few selections from that book. And then our next book is called Grandmother's Dreamcatcher. And this book is by Becky Ray McCain, illustrated by Stacy Shuett, I believe. And this is an Albert Whitman and Company book. So we'll be reading from this book today. And since most of the things that we are going to be eating will be coming from a farm for Thanksgiving, I wanted to read this kind of silly book. When I first got it, I was like, I can't wait to read this book. So this book is called Meanwhile, Back at the Ranch. I can't wait to read this for you guys. This book is by Trinka Hakes Noble, pictures by Tony Ross. And this is a Puffin Books book. And of course, now today is going to be the actual last day that we will be walking with Miss Millie. I can't wait to get to the end of this book. I wanted to read it before you all. I said, no, you can't do it. Miss Hope, you can't do it. You have to wait for your friends to read this with your friends. Okay? Now, let's get to our first book. 13 Moons on Turtle's Back, a Native American Year of Moons. Look at this picture. It shows all 13 of the scales on the back of the turtle. Grandfather leaned over the long spruce log. The small boy stood close, waiting for the old man to notice him. Grandfather looked up, a small smile on his face. "Que so zep," he said. "You do well at watching. Come closer. See now what I have done." Sozep reached up to touch the carved shape of turtle. "How many scales are on old turtle's back?" Grandfather said. "Kina, look." Sozep counted with care. 13, he answered. "Uh-huh," Grandfather said. "There are always 13 on old turtle's back, and there are always 13 moons in each year. Many people do not know this. They do not know, as we Abenaki know, that each moon has its own name, and every moon has its own story." I learned those stories from my grandfather. Someday, grandson, if your memory is as sharp as your eyes, you will be able to tell them to your grandchildren. "Grandfather," Sozep said, "do other native people have moons too?" The old man nodded. "Yes, grandson." Let's read about a couple of these moons. Moon of popping trees. Outside the lodge, the night air is bitter cold. Now the frost giant walks with his club in his hand. When he strikes the trunks of the cottonwood trees, we hear them crack beneath the blow. The people hide inside when they hear that sound. But Coyote, there he is again, the wise one, learns the giant's magic song. And when Coyote sang it, the frost giant slept. Now when the cottonwoods crack with frost again, our children know, unless they hear Coyote's song, they must stay inside where the fire is bright and buffalo robes keep us warm. First moon of the Northern Cheyenne people. Baby bear moon. Long ago, a small child was lost in the snow. We thought she had frozen, but when spring came again, she was seen with a mother bear and her small cubs. She had slept all through the winter with them, and from then on, the bears were her family and her friends. When we walk on by on our snowshoes, we will not bother a bear or her babies. Instead, we think how those small bears are like our children. We let them dream together. Second moon from the Potawatomi people. Let's read about one more of these 13 moons. Maple sugar moon. Long ago, maple sugar dripped thick from the trees. All year round, you had to break a twig and lie down beneath the tree with open mouth. But the people got lazy, and when our creator, Gitchi Manetau, sent his helper, Man Abozu, to visit, he found their village deserted and all the people asleep under the maple trees. So he poured much water into all the maples. so that now the people would have to wake up, make fires, and boil down the sap to make syrup. They would have to work hard for that maple sap. They had to work hard, for that maple sap would flow just this one time of the year, the time we now call Maple Sugar Moon, the third moon of the Anishinaabe people. So that's why they have to do all that boiling down of the sap. Oh, I can't wait to read about the other 13 moons. The 13 moons on Turtle's back. That's turning out to be a good story. Good poems about those 13 moons of the year. Our next book, Grandmother's Dreamcatcher by Betty Ray McCain. The Jeep grumbles and growls along the road. The top is rolled down, and the wind lifts the corner of my bandana. Daddy and Mama are taking me to Grandmother's cabin way out in the woods by a lake. I will stay with her while Daddy and Mama find a home near Daddy's new job in Chicago. When Daddy turns, the road becomes skinny like a snake. I lean back and close my eyes. I picture Grandmother in her blue cotton dress with little flowers I can only see when I am close enough for a hug. Grandmother is Chippewa, like us. She is tiny and brown, with dark, shiny eyes that wrinkle in the corners when she smiles. She is almost light enough for me to lift in the air. That is what I will do someday when I am a bigger girl. I will lift my grandmother into the sky. She will flutter and fly and sound like a bird when she laughs as we float above the trees. The Jeep stops. It is night outside. Grandmother opens my door before I do, and I tumble toward her half asleep. I lean against her as we walk to the cabin. The chilly night wind races through the trees and around me. In the copper pot on Grandmother's wood stove, water makes giggle sounds as it bubbles and boils. Heat pours from the stove, and soon my hands and face feel nice and warm. The grown-ups start talking. I snuggle down on Grandmother's green couch and drift to sleep again. Oh, skipped a page. This time, sleep is noisy and mean. Wait a minute, did I skip something? No. This time, sleep is noisy and mean. Scary things that howl, whistle, and hoot like the night wind are so close. I scream and reach for Mama and Daddy, but in my dream, they can't hear me. Kimmy, Mama says as she holds me, wake up, you're safe. With Mama's arms around me, I'm not afraid anymore. I feel her carrying me to the bed in Grandmother's sewing room. In the morning, sunshine is scattered over my bed and grandmother's floor. The grown-ups are talking in the kitchen. Mama's voice sounds different. I think maybe she is telling about my bad dreams. I walked into the room and see grandmother holding a small circle made of wood. Inside, it is a web of leather string. Feathers are on top of the circle. Some hang down on a string with silver beads. Good morning, I say. What's that? A dream catcher, grandmother says. What does it do? I ask. Grandmother laughs. You'll find out. The dream catcher's beads shimmer in the sunshine while I eat breakfast. When I see Daddy with a suitcase, I feel sad deep inside. Mama gets her coat, and I run to her. We'll only be gone a week, Mama says as they hug me goodbye. I give them my tightest hugs. A week is too long. Grandmother stands beside me. We watch the car grow smaller as they drive down the road. It's like another terrible dream just happened. I feel lost and alone. Come on, child, grandmother says. We have a dream catcher to make just for you. In the woods by the lake, grandmother and I find a green twig that bends. I find some black and white feathers. Back inside the cabin, grandmother brings beads, leather string, and thin leather strips. She makes a circle out of the twig and ties the ends together with a piece of leather. I choose 3 silver beads and string them. Then I tie 1 feather to the string. Grandmother loops a long piece of leather string around and around inside the circle to make the web. As she works, she tells me a story. Before you and I had grandmothers, a Chippewa girl had scary dreams, she says. She would toss and turn and wake herself up with her own screams. I do that, I say. So her grandmother did what our people still do. She asked the Great Spirit for help, and she was given a vision of a dream catcher circle. It had feathers on it, just like yours and mine, but the inside was empty. When this grandmother hung the dream catcher above her grandchild's head, a spider came down and made the web inside. All the child's dreams were then caught in that web to go to the Great Spirit. Only the sweet dreams were permitted to go back to the girl. Did it work? I ask. Of course, says grandmother. After we finish the dream catcher, we hang it above my pillow. That night, I shiver when I think of Mama and Daddy so far away. Grandmother finds me. She sweeps back my hair as she rocks me. I am warm again. Somehow, I am in my bed. I only remember my dream catcher floating above my head and grandmother's hands as they tuck my blankets around me. When I awake, I see my dream catcher turn in the morning light. Grandmother peeks in the room. I'm happy, grandmother, I tell her. My bad dreams didn't come last night. Grandmother's whole face crinkles around her smile. We go to the kitchen. Mama and Daddy will like my dream catcher, I say as Grandma cooks crispy fry bread. I think so, says Grandmother. In your new house, the dream catcher will be in your room. I miss them very much, I tell her. Grandmother hugs me close. Kimmy, Mama and Daddy will come for you, she says in her quiet voice. Then you and I will surprise them. How will we do that? I ask. We will make presents for your new home, answers Grandmother. Each night, I slept under my dream catcher. My dreams are happy and peaceful. Each day, Grandmother and I are busy with our work. We sew beads on leather to make hair ties for Mama. Grandmother takes me fishing, and I find a special feather just for Daddy. We make a dream catcher for Mama and Daddy. But my favorite surprise is the picture I make of my family. There's Grandmother, Daddy, Mama, and me under my dream catcher. Rainbow colors splash out of the feather. And when Mama and Daddy come back, that's the present they like best. It's a beautiful picture. The end. What a beautiful story about the dream catcher and the Chippewa people. Now, my parent friends, parent teacher friends, young ones who love this story, look here. There are instructions on how to make your own dream catcher. The book that keeps on giving. A great story and how to make your own dream catcher. I remember making dream catchers when I was younger, when I was in school, learning about Native Americans and making dream catchers of my own. Grandparents are great. When you have grandparents and older family members, it's like they're always able to make you feel safe. Since it's Thanksgiving, of course, you may not necessarily be able to be with them, but that's why this technology is so wonderful, because we can still see our grandparents and other family members, even though we can't be with them in person. All right, now let us get to this book right here. I have a feeling this is going to be a funny book. Okay, so this book is called, you see the change in our ambiance. All right, so this one is called Meanwhile, Back at the Ranch. Wanted to read something a little bit about the farm, since most of the things we are going to be eating for Thanksgiving come from a farm or a ranch. So why not honor our ranchers and farmers that make sure that we get to eat healthy food and some of the things that can happen on the ranch that we might not ordinarily think about. Okay? Meanwhile, back at the ranch by Trinka Hakes Noble, Rancher Hicks lived out west. As far as the eye could see, there was nothing. Not even a roaming buffalo. So nothing much ever happened. You know, people usually think that nothing happens out in the country. I think I'll drive into town and see what's happening, said Rancher Hicks. Want to ride along, Elna? He asked his wife. No, I've got to dig potatoes, said Elna. So Rancher Hicks climbed into his truck and drove 84 miles to the town of Sleepy Gulch. He stopped at the post office to look at the new wanted posters, but they were the same ones that were there 12 years ago. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, the cat had just had kittens in Elna's sewing basket when the phone rang. Hello, Miss Elna Hicks? Yes. Miss Hicks, you have just won a brand new wall-to-wall frost-free super cool refrigerator with a built-in automatic food maker. Why, I never, exclaimed Elna. The delivery men are on their way. How about that for something where nothing happens? Meanwhile, back in Sleepy Gulch, Rancher Hicks strolled over to the barber shop for a whisker trim and to hear the latest gossip. So what's new, Bob? Asked Rancher Hicks. Well, back in the spring of '49, we had a rainstorm you wouldn't believe. Why, it rained for pretty near a whole 5 minutes. Folks thought it'd never stop. Nothing much been happening since. Wow, a rainstorm? That was the last exciting thing? Goodness gracious. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, the dog had just had puppies when the postman came up the drive with a special delivery. Elna opened it. It was her great Aunt Edith's will. It said, My dear Elna, I'm leaving you my entire estate, which is worth a bundle. Your loving great Aunt Edith. P.S. Enclosed is a winning lottery ticket. I didn't have time to cash it in. So Elna cashed in the lottery ticket and put new siding on the house. Then she added a new wing for the wall-to-wall refrigerator and a new den for all the puppies and kittens. Wait a minute, it's a lot happening on this ranch. Meanwhile, snore, back in Sleepy Gulch, Rancher Hicks moseyed on over to Millie's Mildew Luncheonette. What's new on the menu today, Millie? Well, we got potatoes mashed, potatoes fried, potatoes boiled, potatoes baked, potatoes roasted, and potatoes stewed. Potatoes scalloped and potatoes steamed, and 1 egg. Sounds great, said Rancher Hicks. I'll have one of each and a side order of fries. Wait a minute, Rancher Hicks, that's still potatoes. That's still potatoes. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, After all the pigs had had piglets, Elna finally started to dig potatoes. She struck oil. The oil men came and gave her lots of money. They started 8 new oil wells and an oil refinery that day. Elna took the money and had a very stylish sty built for all the pigs and the piglets. Wow. Goodness gracious, Elna. Meanwhile, back in Sleepy Gulch, Rancher Hicks headed over to the general store to check out the checker game. Howdy, boys. What's new? Well, Bernie here just got a king, and it only took him 2 weeks, said Kurt. And I just jumped 2 of Kurt's men in a little over 2 hours, said Bernie. Wow, what a game, said Rancher Hicks. I can't wait to tell Elna. I have a feeling Elna's got a whole lot more going on. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, all the cows had calves when a silver limo swung into the driveway. Out jumped the Hollywood movie producer and his hairdresser. Elna Hicks, I'm going to make you a movie star. So Elna went on a diet, lost 20 pounds. The hairdresser dyed her hair blonde and painted her lips red. The movie producer gave her a script, a bikini, and a large stack of dollar bills. So Elna had a glamorous cow palace built for all the cows and calves, and she studied her script. Oh my goodness. Is this all in one day? I want to know, is this all in one day? Meanwhile, ho-hum, back in Sleepy Gulch. Rancher Hicks started to cross Main Street when he saw it. Amazing, he gasped. Folks ran to see it. Incredible, they said. A crowd gathered. This is big news, really big, said the newspaper editor. We'd better wake up the mayor, said the sheriff. The mayor came. Why, I never seen anything like it, said the mayor. So he declared it a town holiday. The whole town watched it for hours and hours until finally a turtle crossed the streets. What in the world, Sleepy Gulch? Wow, that was exciting news. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, all the horses had colts when the president's helicopter landed in Elna's yard. Elna Hicks, he said, you've got the finest horses west of Washington. I'm making you a diplomat. Please deliver 2 of your finest horses to the Queen of England. The president paid Elna for the horses and gave her a diplomat's diploma and an autographed picture of himself. Don't forget to vote for me. Elna took the money and had a very stately stable built for all the horses and colts. Oh my goodness. I can't wait for Farmer Hicks to find out about this. Meanwhile, snooze, back in Sleepy Gulch, the sun began to sink slowly in the west. Rancher Hicks felt bad that Elna had missed all the excitement, so he stopped and bought her a box of Cracker Jacks. This will make her day, he said. Then he climbed into his truck and drove 84 miles back to the ranch. Elna met Rancher Hicks down by the mailbox. He gave her the box of Cracker Jacks and told her all about the excitement. Shoot! I miss everything, said Elna. Then Rancher Hicks turned around. What did Rancher Hicks see? Oh, let's see what he saw. What the hey? What the hey? Meanwhile, Elna opened her box of Cracker Jacks, and inside she found a real diamond ring. The end. Oh man, that was a good story. And you know why I like this story? I like this story because it doesn't matter where you live or what your life is like. What's exciting for you and fun for you is all right. Someone else might think it's boring, but you find it absolutely exciting and fun. So during this Thanksgiving holiday, I know that you'll see people on TV or celebrities and things like that and how they're spending their Thanksgiving. Guess what? However, you spend Thanksgiving with your family is exciting and fun and wonderful. It doesn't have to be like anybody else's. Okay? So, and you can make it as exciting as you want it to be. All right? So, I'm glad we read that book. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, I love that book. Elna had a time, okay? Had a time. But what I love is that she didn't have that good time. All those exciting things happen. And then think when Rancher Hicks told her about his excitement, she didn't think that was corny, that was boring. She said, man, I miss everything. I miss all the excitement. Because what was exciting for him, she found it exciting too. And she shared in his excitement. There's a good lesson in that very silly book. All right, now let us get back. We are now at the end of Walking with Miss Millie by Miss Tamara Bundy. Okay? Now, in our last chapter, unfortunately, we lost Miss Millie. Miss Millie knew she was sick and knew she was dying, and she did pass away. But Alice remembered her lesson on allowing herself to be sad and then making up her mind about what she's going to do about that sadness and how she's going to carry on. And that is where we are in chapter 29 of Walking with Miss Millie. So she said that she needed to do something for Miss Millie. And she thought about what it was, and she knew exactly what she needed to do. I believe now we're going to find out what that thing is. I knew just what I needed. The hat box. The hat box filled with all the treasures from Miss Millie. One of them might help Miss Millie on her journey. And if Miss Frankie was right, leaving her something might just help me say goodbye too. Although that was hard to imagine. But I had to at least try. Running upstairs to the bed I shared with Mama, I lifted up the corner of the gold bedspread, expecting to see the box sitting right under the bed where I always kept it. But it wasn't there. I bent down on all fours, shoved my head way back under the rusty springs that creaked every time one of us rolled over in the middle of the night. But I saw nothing. A piece of my pigtail got stuck on the spring under the bed, and I had to wiggle and twist it loose before I could jump up and check out the closet. But again, nothing. Then, of course, I thought of Eddie. Every time I came home with something new, he would hold it and smile and play with it till I made him put it back. He loved that box almost as much as I loved it. He had to have it. I found Eddie in the backyard and signed, "Do you know where my hat box is?" Eddie looked away, playing a game he sometimes played. Like you can't be holding him responsible for something if he can't see you ask. I knew better. "Eddie," I signed as I stepped back in front of him, knowing he knew. "Where is it? It's mine. I need it now." Eddie signed, grinned real big, shrugged his shoulders and signed, "Get on bus." I had enough. "No, Eddie, I don't want to play. Tell me where my box is." Eddie grinned. "Get on bus and I show you," he signed. Mama always talks about her blood boiling when she gets really mad. I don't know at what temperature that happens, but I was fairly certain my blood was at the temperature for boiling right then. But knowing Eddie like I did, and figuring I had no choice, I took a deep breath and got in line behind my brother as he drove that crazy plate around the backyard like we were on a bus. The more we crisscrossed the yard, the madder I got. Just when my blood was ready to completely boil over, and I was just about to jump off that bus and tell Mama, Eddie stopped driving and pointed to a hollowed out spot behind the big tree with the tire swing. Right there, at the bottom of a little indent, was the perfect size for hiding a box of treasures. And there it was. And right beside it was Clarence, like he was guarding it for me until I could do what he knew I needed to do. I signed to Eddie. Why did you take it?" Eddie moved his hand across his forehead like he was wiping away a memory, the sign for forget. Then he shook his head, something fierce. "I don't want to forget," he repeated. I answered by touching my heart and his. "Don't worry. You won't forget. I promise. We'll never forget. We'll keep everything in here. We'll always remember." Clarence snuggled close to us and nudged us to pet him, and the three of us shared a hug. For a few minutes, I just sat there with Eddie and Clarence next to the hat box, and I knew we were all three remembering Miss Millie. Mama came out and sat down next to us on a bit of grass under the tree. "You guys okay out here?" Eddie nodded, wiping his eyes, and went back to plate driving while I rubbed the hat box like I was petting Clarence. "I think so, but there's still something I have to do for Miss Millie." Mama looked at me and at the hat box, her eyes getting misty again. I looked down at the box to keep my eyes from doing the same. I read aloud the words on the hat box. "Moveo ex proficio." "Do you know what that means, Mama?" Mama looked at the box and then up at the sky. Let me think. I studied Latin years ago. Wait, I should know this. Oh, I remember. Moveo et proficio is Latin for I move and I progress. Didn't that beat all? Did you just make that up right now? Mama laughed. A real kind of laugh that made me feel more at home than I had felt in a long time. I promise that's what it means. I hugged Mama and told her I had to go do that last thing for Miss Millie. Mama asked if I wanted her to come, but I told her no. I could do this by myself. Well, by myself with Clarence. I grabbed the hat box and Clarence and headed out to the front yard, where I ran smack into Jake and Pam. Pam just walked around to the backyard to find Eddie, but Jake stopped in front of me. Hey, I wasn't in the mood to chat, but knowing I was heading to where Miss Millie was, it was like she was nudging me to be nice. Hey, I managed to say back. He nodded to Clarence. Y'all taking care of him now? Uh-huh, I said, bobbing my head up and down. Jake leaned over to pet Clarence, who must have remembered him saving his life and all, 'cause his tail started wagging real happy like. Jake laughed as he petted him some more. I just stood there wanting to go when Jake stopped petting him and looked me right in the eye. She was real nice, wasn't she? I nodded again, and still looking right in my eyes, Jake McHale said the darndest thing. Can I come over sometime? Maybe with Pam? You know, to see the dog and all? And since the boy plumb saved the dog's life, I couldn't very well tell him no, could I? Sure, I nodded again. Jake beamed and stood up. Thanks. And then he saw Eddie and Pam walking out front. Pam motioned for Eddie to look at Jake, whose face turned all serious like he was getting ready to perform a speech he'd been practicing. Go ahead, like I taught you, Pam encouraged her brother. Jake then signed in a kind of awkward way, Hi, Eddie. By the time he got done fingerspelling Eddie's name, I wasn't sure which one of those boys had the bigger smile on his face. Maybe Pam's smile was the biggest of all. But my own heart wasn't ready to smile just yet. I had to get back to Miss Millie. Chapter 30. Clarence and I made it to the cemetery in pretty good time. Somehow, with Miss Millie gone, Clarence didn't mind me walking him at all anymore. But when we got to that old rusty iron gate, I just couldn't go on in. My feet froze to the dry, dusty ground. It wasn't because I was scared this time. I knew I needed to get to Miss Millie. But more than that, I knew deep in my heart that when I left her this time, it would really be the last time. She was gone. Miss Millie was gone. I sat down in the dirt right there outside the cemetery while I was hugging both the hat box and Clarence tight to my chest. My tears, the same tears that had been stuck inside for the last few days, finally decided to fall. Clarence let himself be held like that, even rubbing his head against mine, like he was offering himself as a hanky. And I cried and cried some more. Not sure how long we sat like that, but all at once, through my tears, right there at the gate of the cemetery, I heard something behind us. I gasped, making Clarence jump back and growl. My heart started thudding out of fear. Then I saw what was making the noise. Right there, like they all knew I didn't really want to be alone, stood Eddie, Pam, and Jake. What are you guys doing here? I asked, sniffling and wiping my eyes on the back of my arm. Pam spoke first. We, we know how y'all hate cemeteries, and we had a feeling y'all was headed here. Then she grinned at me. I stood up, brushed off my sundress, and smiled back. Thanks. I looked at each of them standing there. My voice was shaking like I was back on Grandma's bumpy road. Maybe I'm starting not to mind cemeteries so much now, but I'm glad you guys are here. Eddie grinned and signed, "Never forget." I nodded and turned to walk through the wrought iron gate of the cemetery as everyone followed. Together we walked way to the back of the cemetery, past the bench under the old oak tree, past the big gravestones, and past all the pretty flowers until I found the grave site of Miss Millie. The workers had just covered up the grave, so the Georgia clay was glistening red and shiny in the sunshine. Mama promised we would bury her a cross to match Mr. Clayton's. I first headed back over to Mr. Clayton's cross and put my hand on it again. Eddie, Pam, and Jake stood back, giving Clarence and me some privacy, like I used to do for Miss Millie. Unlike earlier, this time I found some words. "Mr. Clayton, I'm happy you and Miss Millie are back together, but I'm sorry she had to leave here to make that happen. And I wish your boy could be with you in this place, but I know you're all together where it really counts." Then I looked at Clarence, who I swear was looking right at me, listening. "Please take care of Miss Millie for us, okay?" Clarence's tooth stuck out even more, like he was telling me that was exactly what he wanted to say. Then I turned to the shiny mound of clay showing me where Miss Millie was buried. I just stood there for a few minutes, not saying anything, but hoping my heart said something I couldn't. Finally, I knelt on the hard Georgia ground. Clarence turned around in a circle like he was trying to figure out how to kneel, but instead finally sat down next to me. And sitting right there in the back of the cemetery, a panting dog at my side, with an audience I never would have expected so close by, I thought about my time in Rainbow. I thought of Daddy and how a small part of me would always be waiting for him, even though he might never show up. I thought about Mama and how a big part of me would always be glad she made me go see Miss Millie that one day. And I thought about Miss Millie and me and how different we were. But what made us different wasn't one lick as important as what made us the same. Me and Miss Millie knew that. Then I pulled out the hat box full of all the treasures she shared with me. If a pie plate might help Miss Millie on her journey, one of these treasures surely couldn't hurt. I looked through the box. It was funny. When she gave them to me, they were just things. But now they were so much more. I wasn't sure I could part with any of them. But then I saw it. Miss Ruth's scallop shell. "We might all come from different directions," she said, "but hopefully we all end up at the same place one day." I pulled it out and wrapped my fingers around it like that day Miss Millie gave it to me. And then I put it in the spot close to where her cross would go. Then there was one more thing I had to give her. I pulled out a folded piece of paper from my pocket and recited a poem I wrote for her. "I'm happy you're in heaven. It's where you deserve to be. But still I know each step I take, you'll always walk with me." I don't know if it was as good as Daddy's poems, but I liked it just fine and bet Miss Millie would have too. Writing her a poem felt like talking to her. It made me feel better. I folded the poem back up and put it under Miss Ruth's shell. Picking up the hat box again, I saw my letter. I read it so many times, I had it memorized, but I needed to read it again. Alice girl, I never been one to get all mushy, so no need to start now. But I want to make sure you know you're a real fine young lady. You said there's no rainbows in Rainbow, but I disagree. You're a rainbow in a sometimes dark world. Keep shining, my Alice girl. Keep shining. Love, Miss Millie Miller. I looked again at the old hat box, thinking about those Latin words, and started to think, for a hat box, it was pretty smart. Maybe sometimes you do have to move to progress and end up where you're supposed to be. But speaking of moving and progressing, I knew for a dang fact that Miss Millie would not want any of us sitting there getting all mushy in that cemetery on her account for much longer. I picked up my hat box of treasures and started walking back to my friends. But before I walked away from Miss Millie's resting place, I looked up to heaven. On this clear summer day, there was not a cloud in the sky, but I swear that there, high in the sky, shining like nobody's business, was the prettiest rainbow I ever did see. I smiled as I heard Miss Millie's voice saying, "Don't that beat all?" And it did. Miss Millie and that rainbow sure did. The end. Oh, what a good story. So, my friends, story made me a little misty myself. I love that story. And it makes me think that during this time, many of the young ones may not understand everything that's going on. But something that was said in the story about that seashell, how we all may come from different places. But we can all meet in the middle. And a lot of things that are different about us don't matter. What matters more is how we are the same. So, seeing as Thanksgiving is Thursday, that is one of the things that I am thankful for. Here on Miss Hope's Reading Hour, I'm not always able to see everybody who watches. But no matter who you are, whether you look like me, or you sound like me, or you have hair like me, or we're in the same city, or if we're in totally different countries, I am thankful that there are more things about us that are the same that we can meet in the middle about. And those things make the things that are different not matter at all. Well, with all that being said, thank you so much for being with me here on Miss Hope's Reading Hour. I pray that you and your families have a wonderful Thanksgiving and that you have fun and that you eat a lot of great food and that you just enjoy each other and be safe. Okay? Well, with all of that being said, thank you so much for being here with me every time on Miss Hope's Reading Hour. It is my joy and honor to read these wonderful stories for you. Okay? Until next time, my friends, have a wonderful, safe, and healthy Thanksgiving. And I will see you on our fabulous Friday right here on Miss Hope's Reading Hour. Until then, my friends, see you next time.